I want to thank the Vista City School District for giving me this opportunity to come and share with you some of my ideas, some of my research about a topic that I feel very passionate about. And that topic is cultural intelligence, specifically cultural intelligent pedagogy. I want to give you a brief overview of what I want to share with you today. Obviously, I'm going to provide a definition of cultural intelligence. I'm going to give you the basic tenets of cultural intelligence, and then I'm going to give you some idea about how to operationalize the principles, the imperatives of cultural intelligent pedagogy. But I also want to tell you what my goal here today is. Right? In the time that I have with you, I'm not going to be able to go into the depth and the breadth of what cultural intelligence is. Rather, what I hope to do today is to give you just a taste, to wet your whistle. Does everyone know what I mean when I say wet your whistle? Okay, good. Because there's generational miscommunication. So wet your whistle, for those of you who don't know, means just a taste, right? Just a taste of what cultural intelligence is. And in the hope that you will be interested enough to take a professional development workshop, which we hope to develop over the year, this coming year, and hopefully the years to follow. So this is just a taste, as I said, of what it means to be cultural intelligent and what it means to have cultural intelligence in your own classrooms. But first, I want to talk about me. My students say, oh, here comes a who cares story, but hopefully you will care. This is a story about me. This is Freddie, an earlier version of myself, a long time ago. It doesn't matter how long ago, but a long time ago. This is an earlier version of Freddie, and I have gone back to this time in my life a great deal over the last 2 years. Over the last 2 years, particularly, I've been working with Devin and his team on the blueprint for educational excellence. And going back to this time in my life has helped me to reflect upon those moments. And Joe Green talked about some of this in his introduction. Those moments, those transitional moments, we all know, we all have had them. Those transitional moments, those threshold moments where teachers and other educators, where teachers have created spaces for me to understand, that allowed me to understand myself in a completely different way, and my potential in a completely different way. I want to share a story with you that I heard from, a personal narrative that I heard from Juan Herrera. I don't know if you know who Juan Herrera is. He has been named as the new poet laureate for the United States. He was once, a while ago, a couple years ago, the poet laureate for the state of California. So he came to Cal State San Marcos when we could still afford him to have him. And so it was a reception, and somebody inevitably asked him, what put you on the path of towards poetry? And he said, it was my second grade teacher. He remembered her name. I don't remember the name. But it was his second grade teacher, he said, because the second grade teacher told him something, opened up the door for him, told him, you were an incredible writer. He said, that's the moment I knew that I was on the road to become now, of course, our national poet laureate. So cultural intelligent pedagogy always begins with a moment of reflection. And in my larger workshops, the reflection process is a lot longer. But because of time constraints, we're under the tyranny of time here today, I'm going to just ask you to insert your photo there. I'm going to ask you to think just for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, about those transformational moments that you had. I want you to think about and describe the teacher and all the ingredients, all the variables that existed that allowed you as a child or as a young adult to see yourself in a different way. So if you just take a moment, and I should also say that on the website, there's a resource page that's attached to this presentation. And if at all possible, and if you could do this right away, because I know you won't do it after this session is over because you're getting ready to teach on Monday, but if you would take a moment, it would be a great favor to me if you would write down your response to this question in that form. So just take a minute, please, to reflect on, and the things that are going to come up are going to be the most memorable. So just take a moment to reflect on that if you would. I'll stop you here. I wish we had more time. I always use this exercise. I find it very valuable because it allows us to frame the discussion to follow, really a monologue to follow, in the next few minutes through the lens of these threshold experiences. It allows us to remember the power that we have as educators. The power that we have as educators to inspire our students, to lift them up, and to, in some cases, diminish their sense of self. Right? And that's what cultural intelligence is about, that moment of reflection. Cultural intelligence demands that we, as educators, as teachers, first of all, examine, acknowledge, and continually reflect on the power that we have in our classrooms. You know that sometimes even a glance from a teacher can make a student feel uncomfortable. Right? So cultural intelligence is a way, that reflective process, which we only had a little taste of today, that reflective process allows us to use that power, to wield that power in a much more intentional and powerful way. So, what is cultural intelligence? Cultural intelligence is the ability to cope with multicultural situations, engage in cross-cultural interactions, and perform in culturally diverse work groups. And this is from, the source is from the Cultural Intelligence Research Center. And I chose this description, this definition for a number of reasons. There's many ways of describing cultural intelligence. This does a very good job. But I chose this particular definition as a working definition for us today because this definition came right from the business world. Cultural intelligence is a concept, is an idea, is a strategy that did not emerge from the social sciences. Some people oftentimes are surprised by that. The concept of cultural intelligence did not emerge from the humanities. The idea of cultural intelligence emerged straight from business think tanks. And the reason for that is, you can see from this quote, there is a gap in the workplace skills that students are leaving K through 12 and university. Right, qualified workers because of a talent mismatch. And although I think we're very clear, particularly in Vista Unified School District, that one of those talent mismatches center around STEM, right? The lack of qualified graduates to work in the field of STEM. But the other mismatch in terms of skills that people oftentimes don't realize is that of cultural intelligence. The ability to do these things, right? Work in diverse work groups, deal with multicultural situations. It's not just about being, this is what would drive this point home today. This is not just about being a good person, although certainly you are good, and it helps you to become a better person, to be a better person. These are hard skills that the people in the business world are demanding from our students. Right? These aren't just skills that allow us to be better citizens. These are skills that we have to see not just as fluff or additive to our curriculum, but that have to lie at the heart of our curriculum. And Devin gave a wonderful example of why that is. So I put together this chart because I wanted to collapse your values and your mission with the principles of cultural intelligence. And you'll see that they're all related. I'm just asking you today to rethink and reframe your own vision and mission and values here at Vista Unified School District in a different way, through the lens, through the framework of cultural intelligence, because I think in that way it will allow you to move forward in a new and different direction. So you're already doing many of these things. Let me be very clear about that. And I applaud you. Listening to Devin's presentation, it's so exciting. I'm so grateful to be a part of this very important transition. So I want to talk to you about three. There's many principles of cultural intelligence, but three of the most important principles are the ability to deal with uncertainty, the ability to deal with effectively communicate cross-culturally, and of course, one that you know very well, the ability to be technologically ready. So let's begin with the first one. Embracing uncertainty. Right? The willingness, as Devin pointed out, the willingness to move from what we know to what we don't know. The willingness to take risks, You know, our students today, our students are faced with unscripted problems. And some people say, Freddie, isn't that the way that the world has always been, that human beings have always been faced with unscripted problems? And I say, yes. But the unscripted problems that we're facing and that demand immediate solutions are coming at us at an accelerated pace. And we have to reframe these feelings of uncertainty. And also connected to that is the ability to deal creatively with conflict. Because when we feel scared, when we're moving from the known to the unknown, what is the emotion that comes up? Fear. Sometimes attached to that is anger, right? Fear and anger. But we have to demonstrate and model for our students, ourselves, how to be able to deal with uncertainty and ambiguity. And so I'm going to talk to you in a moment about how you do that in your classrooms. But it takes a great deal of courage. It takes a great deal of courage. So it's not about the ability to deal with uncertainty. It's the ability to understand uncertainty, to embrace uncertainty, to understand and reframe the notion of conflict, to see conflict as the birth of something new. Right? And I agree with Devin when he was pointing out some of the maps and some of the graphics that they were using words like distress. Right? We need to stop using words to describe uncertainty and conflict that way, as distress and disequilibrium. Is that what he said? Am I saying it right? Right? We need to, those words are no longer viable. We have to stop describing the state of humankind in terms of uncertainty using those words. Rather, it's a way, it's a movement to something better. It's the grist for the mill, personally, socially, and globally. Cross-cultural communication. I think we understand why cross-cultural communication is important, especially because we all exist and work, I teach at Cal State San Marcos, in a highly diverse community, in a highly diverse region. But I want to give you an example of why businesses are very concerned. This is one of their top requested skills. Why are businesses so concerned? Why do businesses want our graduates to be able to communicate cross-culturally? And it's not just about making sure they're nice people. Let me give you an example. Some of my colleagues went to do some consulting work, were asked to do some consulting work in a maquiladora. Does everyone know what a maquiladora is? It's a factory along the border of Tijuana, right? So they went in, they were called in sort of an emergency situation because these maquiladoras are very multicultural. So the maquiladora that they were asked to provide some training in was owned by a Korean company. The middle managers were Western Europeans, mostly Germans, and of course the workers were Mexican. And I can tell you this, whatever school they went to, nobody was talking about embracing uncertainty or trying to understand conflict as a movement to something even greater. That's why cross-cultural communication is a major interest. Why businesses have taken a major interest in cross-cultural communication, because diversity and cross-cultural proficiency is good for business. It affects the bottom line. The other thing that I want to talk about under this umbrella is that when we talk to our students about cross-cultural communication, we have to help them understand this continuum between local and global. We have to make them understand that it's not just about working in China, it's not just about working in India or Germany or wherever they may land, right? Those skills are important, but it's also about solving real-world problems here in our own community. It's incumbent on us to help our students understand that what happens thousands of miles away affects every child every day here in the Vista City School District. And conversely, the decisions that we make, our students make, also have an effect on people that we will never know, places that we will probably never go to. So they call it the glocal, right? Understanding that continuum and helping our students understand this. And before I move to the next slide, I want to give you another statistic that came out of Cal State San Marcos. And I would imagine it's very similar because you are a feeder school for Cal State San Marcos. We have a memorandum of understanding. Recently, there was a great college survey done at Cal State San Marcos, and what we discovered I was very surprised by this, is that 85% of our graduates at Cal State San Marcos will continue to live and work in the region after they graduate. So as we talk about global problem solving, we have to remember that we also have to think about how to solve those problems through effective and proficient cross-cultural communication. Technological readiness is another imperative of cultural intelligence and cultural intelligence pedagogy. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because you are well ahead, as Devin said. You're not just trying to follow a model, you are trying to be the model. And I understand today one of your workshops was a digital citizenship. Bravo! This notion of technological readiness, I'm going to suggest another way to also frame technological readiness. In my own research, I look at the relationship between digital platforms, communication in digital platforms, and real-time human communication. And I use the metaphor of a coin, right? A coin is two-sided, but it's fused together. And so today, one side of that coin, in order to be viable economically or politically, you have to understand how to communicate on a variety of different communication digital platforms. On the other side, we cannot forget, the other side of that coin is human relationships in real time. And we have to remember that technology is only a means to an end. It is not the end in itself. I'm currently doing a research project where I am interviewing a number of very high-powered CEOs. And recently in Santa Barbara, I sat down with Matt Bodecker, who only hires, by the way, Ivy League candidates. And he said, this is the problem, Freddie, and I'm hearing this from other CEOs that I am interviewing. They come with the ideas, they know how to operate the technology, but they don't understand this, that the world and the business world is motivated and fueled by human relationships. So as we teach our students about different communication platforms, we also have to remember that sometimes human communication is the most important platform, and really the end to technological communication. So, basic assumptions of cultural intelligent pedagogy. What are the basic assumptions? Well, first of all, understanding that the history, values, and experiences of different groups are important to know, particularly in a highly diverse region that we exist in. Two that I want to talk about. I don't know if any of you have ever come upon or maybe used in your own work the theories of Gerd Hofstede. Gerd Hofstede is an anthropologist, and he developed a set of continuums. He says every culture exists on a set of continuums. One of those continuums, by the way, is uncertainty avoidance, right? Depending on the culture that you have been acculturated into, you have a relationship with uncertainty and ambiguity. As US Americans, we have a very high level of uncertainty, as opposed to people in Ireland or Mexico who are lower on that level of uncertainty avoidance. But the ones that I want to concentrate on today is the continuum of individualism versus collectivism. As US Americans, many of us in the room, as US Americans, scholars will say that the #1 US cultural value is individualism. For other cultures, the #1 cultural value is that of collectivism. Some of the best ways, some of the most powerful and profound ways of understanding these differences is through the use of proverbs. Let's think about some of the proverbs that we have in the United States to explain ourselves. I wish I had more time I can't even see you, so I don't even know if your hands are up. So, all right, so what are some of the proverbs? Well, here's a proverb. What? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. The early bird catches the worm. Stand up and be counted. Okay. Now, let's look at, that's an individualism continuum. If we look at the proverbs of some other cultures, and one that I particularly like is the one that comes from Japan, and that proverb is, the nail that sticks out will be beaten down. Okay. Early bird, squeaky wheel, open your mouth, you will be beaten down. Completely two different ways of operating through time and space. So what does that look like in our classrooms? I love to share this story about a group of very dedicated teachers. Aren't all teachers dedicated? I think they are. We're not doing it for the money. I don't know. If you are, let me know. See if I can take your job. But right. So these group of very dedicated teachers, not unusual, went to work in the impoverished Hopi Indian Reservation, underserved community in the Hopi Indian Reservation. And so they got there full of hope, vim, and vigor. And after a very short period of time, they began to become very discouraged because the students were not responding. They would ask the students a question, and nobody would raise their hand. And so many of them were thinking about leaving. This just isn't working. The students don't have the capacity. I mean, the assumptions start to arise, correct? There's something wrong with the students. The students are, there's something. And finally, one very innovative teacher, gentleman, he decided to try something new. And so instead of asking the students to raise their hand individually, he asked the student a question and asked the entire classroom to answer it. And when he did, the answer was recited back to him in unison. Because for people who come from collectivist cultures, raising your hand in a classroom as an individual would diminish the humanity of the other children. That is one example. Also power distance. I won't spend a lot of time here. Power distance is different cultures have different relationships to authority figures. So some of your students might have been acculturated into a culture where approaching an authority figure is something that you don't do. I'm going to talk about eye contact in just a moment. Right? It's something you just don't do. So if you don't understand these cultural continuums, right, you might come to an erroneous assumption about the student and their capabilities, as those teachers who went to the Hopi Indian Reservation were very close to doing. And I want to say this about cultural intelligent pedagogy and the tools and the imperatives of this practice. This is not about memorizing long lists of do's and don'ts. So when you're in Thailand, don't ever touch anybody on the head in certain areas because that's considered insulting. When you go to Saudi Arabia, never show anybody the bottom of your shoe. Right? And so I could go on and on and on. And these stories, this kind of knowledge is interesting. And you should know those things. If you're going to travel to those countries, I would highly recommend you study those countries for your own safety and happiness while you're on your trip. But really, cultural intelligence is a mindset. It's a set of tools that you can include in the tools that you already have. The tools that you have today maybe won't open that box. But cultural intelligence will maybe provide new and different ways of opening the door to some of the problems that you have. Power distance. So think about that. Okay, the thought patterns of non-Western people and how people view problems. I don't have a lot of time to talk about this, so I'll just say this. Understand that as U.S. Americans, we think in linearity, right? Beginning, middle, and an end, correct? And so when we teach essay writing, we say what? What's your thesis statement, your support, and what is your conclusion, tying those two things together? But other cultures don't do that. Their thought process, and by the way, I'm not privileging one over the other because both are absolutely correct and right. I'm not trying to pit one over the other. But other cultures, if you think about their thought process, it's more like peeling an onion. It's more like peeling an onion, right? So they might start in the middle and then move over here and then over there, and then what are U.S. Americans freaking out about? What are you trying to say? Get to the point. But as a teacher, if you don't know that perhaps your student comes from one of those cultures, again, erroneous assumptions. So I want to talk to you about cultural intelligent pedagogy in terms of your choices and your behaviors. And I want to talk to you about your behavior. All of us in this room, and maybe some of you in your reflective, in the reflective moment that I asked you to take part in, understand that oftentimes it's not the teacher's words. Joe Green mentioned this as well. It's not the teacher's words. It's not the curriculum itself. Right? It's oftentimes the teacher's behaviors. Right? It's oftentimes the teacher's behaviors. We are teaching students how to embrace uncertainty. We are teaching students how to deal creatively with conflict by not only our curricular choices, but our behavioral choices as well. You are the primary pedagogical tool in your classrooms. You are the primary pedagogical tool. So here's being culturally, and these are just again, wetting your whistle. These are just some simple things you can do. when I do this workshop and I bring up this possibility, learn how to pronounce your students' names correctly, I could spend a whole 3 hours on this. This just opens up a Pandora's box of people wanting to talk about this. Learning to pronounce your students' names correctly. Now, for those of you who are with your students for a year, you know, through grammar school, that's probably easier. But for those of you who are junior high and high school, where you have them intermittently in university, this can be much more of a challenge. So other students are watching your effort to be able to pronounce students' names correctly. What are they learning? They're learning that you're showing respect to honor the basic fundamental identity of your students. They're learning by watching you. They're learning by watching you. Take the time to respect each and every one, every student, every day. So learn to pronounce those names. Nonverbal communication. Think about the way that you take up time and space in your classrooms. I just want to share a story that I heard actually about 3 weeks ago. I did a similar presentation for a group of administrators here at Vista Unified School District. And before I came on the stage, and maybe some of you were out there, a group of teachers were giving a presentation, and they had brought together a panel of former students from various high schools and asked them to talk about what would have made their educational experience better in Vista City high schools. And some of them said, it would be really great if the teachers would look at us. It would be really great if the teachers would make eye contact with us. Right. So again, your behaviors, and I don't want you to walk around with blinders and not be able to move, but just have a sense of consciousness, right? That they're watching you very, very closely. So nonverbal communication, humor, okay. Humor is a wonderful pedagogical tool, isn't it? It's a wonderful pedagogical tool. And in this particular very short video that I'm going to be showing, this is a video that I use as a way to kind of break the tension when talking about stereotypes. Now this is a film or a short clip that's more appropriate for middle school to high school. But the process, even if you're in K through 6th grade, should be the same. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, finally, right?
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
San Diego. We speak English there.
Oh, no, where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I mean before that.
Before I was born.
Yeah, like, well, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean, but I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
Yeah, Hamshasina. There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place near my apartment. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
Oh, I'm just American.
Really? You're Native American?
No, just regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well. Hello, Governor! What's all this then? Top of the morning to you. Let's get a small tea. Double, toil and trouble. Mind the gap, beware Jack the Ripper. Bloody hell! Pip pip, cheerio! I think your people's fish and chips are amazing.
You're weird.
Really? I'm weird? Must be a Korean thing.
There will be a 10-minute break before our third series begins. Gourmet feature is located in the front of the gym for participants. Dealing with uncertainty, new situations. Okay, so the idea here, and I want to show you this too, the idea here is not to use, now I'm going to say that when I use that particular film in my classrooms, there are many students that get offended. Right? And so the idea is, you want to be appropriate, you want to bring in something that's absolutely inappropriate, you understand that. But the idea is not bringing in tools, pedagogical tools and methods like this, using humor. But the idea of cultural intelligent pedagogical practice is that you are prepared for the meaningful and difficult dialogues that will emerge from showing these kinds of films or showing these kinds of posters. I was part of a group of people who put together this poster campaign at Cal State San Marcos. They're beautifully, they were displayed in the library. We also take them on the road if you're interested. We'd be happy to come. But what we did is we prepared, was not just the posters, but we prepared for the difficult dialogues. So one of the other cultural intelligent pedagogical practices that people have to have, and Devin mentioned this, is the ability to deal with hot topics in your classroom in a meaningful way. Dr. Martin Luther King said, the day your life begins to end, the day you stop having meaningful conversations. And if we're going to teach our students how to deal creatively with conflict, we have to learn how to do it ourselves. So, finally, professional development. Devin said it. Take risks. You know, think about, doesn't even, just that they can be small. In fact, I would encourage you to take small steps. Even the teacher at the Hopi Indian Reservation who decided that he was going to try something different. And I hope that in the year to come, that you will avail yourself of some of the professional development opportunities in the area of cultural intelligence. And I hope that 20 years from now, I hope that as educators, we all hope that 20 years from now, if they still have things like this, 20 years from now, 20 years from now, when they're asked a question about the teacher that made a difference in their life, you can insert your photo there. Finally, this is my last thing, is at some point, it would be great if you did it now so you would do it, is if you could write down 1, 2, 3 to 5 things that you think you would like to learn more about in the area of cultural intelligence and cultural intelligent pedagogy. Thank you for your time.